I didn't know if I had another techno album in me. I really had to search very deep inside and consider what my relationship with techno is. And I think that a bit of danger creates more excitement for me as a performer and for the audience. The idea of music as being entertainment is a much more modern idea in human history. Oh, you know, the golden age of electronic music is over and it's all been done, blah, blah, blah. I just do not believe that at all.
Hey, Tony.
Hi.
It's really good to have you here.
Yeah, it's good to be here.
Good. How are you doing?
Good. I was at Super Booth yesterday. It's the first time I've been there.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Been trying to sort that out for quite a long time, and it's taken many years for everything to line up. But yeah, I made it finally.
Was there anything that caught your eye?
I was kind of in and out for my performance, but there were a couple of people that I specifically wanted to meet up with. Got to see them. And yeah, did a live set, and that was that was fun. It's kind of the energy is very different at like a synth expo as compared to like, you know, a club night or something. But it was good. It was fun. Yeah. People were really nice, really nice.
And people are coming up and looking at your
And afterwards, there was like just a row of people wanting to take pictures of the gear, but it's fine. I'm not, you know, hiding anything. I'm happy for them to see whatever I'm using.
Cool. Well, let's talk about Shellwave, which is your new album on Tresor. It's one of my favorite releases you've put out.
Thanks.
And you said that this release is your response to people who ask you what techno is. Can you expand on what that means?
So I think before I did Shellwave, I didn't, how to explain it? I didn't know if I had another techno album in me. I really had to search very deep inside and consider what my relationship with techno is currently after all this time, and the changes and different fashions and trends in the scene and stuff like that. I think I searched really deep inside and found quite a fundamental. I tried to really boil it down, you know. I think the previous album, Crash Recoil, was quite. I look back on it; it's almost like my prog album. It's very arranged and, very different. Whereas this is just much more stripped down and minimal. But it's trying to find the essence of it and, you know, connecting with how it relates to my ideas about dub production and minimalism and the interaction of a human with the machines, live improvisation, live takes, things like that. So that all went into the album. But the point you're asking is like, to demonstrate what techno is to me, it's much easier for me to just say, listen to this, rather than try to babble away and explain it. You know, that's the way that I express myself most clearly, I hope.
Yes.
is through the music.
Yeah. So you mentioned that in the press release for this album, that the 60s recording engineer Joe Meek was really pivotal in shaping the record's sound. And you have credited him with knowing how to create emotional intensity in music. And I'm curious what you took from him and applied in your work.
I think for me, with a lot of my influences, it's often about I admire and am inspired by their attitude and approach, rather than like literally their, you know, copying their exact sound. I mean, I don't think someone would listen to Shellwave and go, oh yeah, he likes Joe Meek, doesn't he? It's more, you know, I'm so inspired about the way that he was such an outsider in the music industry, and what an impact he made with such kind of such a simple setup and nowhere near as much budget as the major the record labels had at the time that he was kind of competing with in the pop market. But also I loved that he the point that I was talking about was how he was making pop music, but he knew how to amp up the emotion in the music by using like extreme compression and delay and effects and things like that to really kind of emotionally connect and really impact his audience. And so, when these kids heard one of his songs, it would just blow them away, and the emotion in it would really hit them. And so I was really inspired by him as, like I say, him as an outsider and just doing his own thing and having his strong vision, but also just understanding, the emotional impact of the music and being able to increase that.
Yeah. So he was one of the first people to pioneer like overdubbing techniques, right? Am I correct? Or
I'm not 100% sure. That may be.
We'll
I mean, he for sure. His studio approach was really radical at the time. A lot of people, I mean, I heard things about the BBC refused to play a lot of songs he produced because they said they were too distorted or something, meaning not just sounding like a direct recording of a band, for example. He squeezed them and squashed them, and that was really radical at the time.
Okay, well, let's talk about dub, like Jamaican dub.
Mm-hmm.
What dub do you like? What is your connection with dub culture?
So I'm certainly not a dub expert. I know a lot of people who know a lot more than I do, in terms of being collectors and that kind of thing. But I'm just so inspired, and I have been for a really long time, with like how much someone like King Tubby got from so little. And some of his work I listened to again and again. I can't even count how many times I could have listened to one of his dubs, and I cannot get my head round the absolute genius of it. It's so simple and elegant and beautiful, and I cannot get my head around that. And it's just so inspiring. It's just like, wow, I can't figure it out somehow. But it's, I don't know. And within that, I hear the blueprint for so much the way that disco, house, techno is kind of constructed, and the shifts in frequencies and things like, I don't know. I just hear echoes of that through so much. And so going back to this root of that I just find it so inspiring. It really, I find it hard to express how exciting it is listening to just, for example, King Tubby's work.
Yeah. There's certain tracks on Shellwave. I think it's Infinite Eye is one of them, where there's, and I don't know if this is something borrowed from dub, but there's like a polyrhythm where it feels like it comes, like the downbeat kind of changes at different points throughout the track, and like things fall out of place and back into place, and but in a really effective way, I think. You have talked about the first time you heard dub in Birmingham in a past interview, and you said that when you moved there, you were friends with a guy who built custom speakers, and he was quite an authority on reggae and dub, and he smoked great skunk weed, in your words, and he exposed you to a lot of music. Can you remember what he was showing you, and like what was really new to you then?
I just love the way that he explained this. I don't know if it's correct to say it's like this folk music element in it, where he said, "Oh, listen to this one, hear the bass line," and then he'd play the other one and go, "Oh, this one's got the same bass line in it." And it's the way that a lot of these songs interconnected in this way and shared bass lines. And he was trying to play me and explain the way a lot of this fit together. I think it kind of went a bit over my head, really, but it was just amazing to have someone who had these phenomenal speakers just playing me all this dub, and it was a really, really great introduction to it.
You also mentioned going to a place called Mosley Dance Center, where there were like reggae dancing nights.
I used to live in that area and areas next to it in Birmingham, but Borsall Heath and Mosley and Kings Heath, they're all like in the same kind of south of Birmingham centre area. Yeah, there was a venue called the Mosley Dance Centre. That was actually where I went to my first ever raves as well. And I think one time me and some friends, it was New Year's Eve, and we went there thinking there was going to be a rave, but it was like reggae bands and reggae DJs and stuff like that. And just all of these things just seemed to fit together very naturally. The same thing with the parties that we'd often have one room playing techno and another room playing dub and hip hop, drum and bass. Especially back then, all of these things really kind of fitted together for me.
So you were in a psych rock band, or space psych rock,
something like that, yeah,
band called Blim. And I bring it up because psychedelia has been such an important through line in your work, I think. I actually didn't think that before preparing for this interview. It's not something that was immediately like, it wouldn't have been like, surgeon, like psychedelic artist, but I do see it now as this running thread, even if it's just like more of a conceptual thing. And I wonder what has been your fascination with that style, if I could call it that.
I'm glad you've noticed that, because that is something, like you say, I feel that's run through kind of everything I do, really. It does inform everything. Much more so, it's the way that often people might label what I do as hard or industrial, and from my point of view, I really never think of it in that way. It's more about something being really mind-bending, basically. It's back to what we were talking about with Joe Meek, about having a powerful emotional impact. Maybe that's what the psychedelic part of it is.
Well, in that thread, there are a few things that helped inform your approach to the creative process. And I think the most important of these things was the work of William Burroughs and his concept of the cutup method, which is an approach that was very heavily adopted by outfits like Coil and Psychic TV. Can you explain what the cutup method is and why it changed your world?
I think it was when I was about 15 or 16, I saw this a VHS video cassette of a collection of William Burroughs films. And there was one called William Buys a Parrot, and there was one called The Cutups, and that was my first encounter with the idea of cutups. And that was I know cutups is usually done with text, but this was done with film, and something about that really blew my mind, because I think up until that point I'd always seen TV or films with a fairly straightforward narrative or something like that. And this is the first time I saw something that really exploded that. And it's just seeing something at an early age and going, wow, there's another way you can do that. And it just shook up my universe and just made me reconsider a lot of things. It's not just looking at the content, it's looking at what the process is. That was what the shift was. It was considering process as opposed to just content.
So I guess his whole thing was that if you take like a string of words and you cut them up and rearrange them, you create a whole different meaning out of those words. I think I'm really oversimplifying it.
I thought it was like it allows you to take the surface away and get deeper into the meaning, the subliminal, to access the subliminal meaning of the work.
That sounds more accurate.
I don't know. Yes. Maybe it's somewhere in between.
But so then how did you take that idea, the power of grouping and regrouping words or parts of a film, and can you remember the effect when you saw what you could do to apply that to music and sound?
I think, again, like I mentioned with Joe Meek, I wasn't literally I was inspired by these cut-up films, but I didn't then take that and try to directly mimic what that was, in terms of film or music. It was being inspired and being shown how to manipulate the process and not just the content. And it just showed me that difference between process and content. I hadn't considered, I was always thinking about content of music or film, but that showed me, look, here's the process, and I'm fucking with the process. Look what this does. And I was like, wow, that's amazing. You could apply it in this way, but not directly copying what that is. It's just being inspired by the kind of higher idea of it.
Yes. Well, I know you were influenced by a book called The Complete Beatles Recording Sessions, which, I mean, that aside, you wanted to try some of their recording techniques on your own. And I read that you were using a reel-to-reel tape recorder and a razor blade to basically try to cut and recreate songs of theirs.
Yeah, it was what I'd read about how they made Tomorrow Never Knows, and they create these tape loops and use those in that track, and that was really really out there for a pop band at the time. I was just really inspired by what I read, but it's so different to today, where there are all these YouTube tutorials that you can watch about how to EQ a kick drum or whatever. But I just read about this in a book, and I tried to kind of recreate that, but filling in the gaps with my imagination or something. And it was just, it was a really fun, I'm not really sure what the results were like, but...
You don't still have it somewhere?
I hope not. But I loved where I'd get a tiny piece of information, and I'd have to fill in the gaps with my imagination about how to do it, and doing it with just a reel-to-reel tape recorder. It was just really fun, just playing, part of playing with sound, which I still really enjoy doing.
Yeah. I think there is an element of, when everyone's watching the same YouTube tutorials about how to do something, it's maybe sterilizes you lose some of the originality of just making mistakes.
I'm so inspired by, I've already mentioned Joe Meek and also King Tubby. The way that they created what they did was by doing things, by having an inspiration and changing the format of what was normal and acceptable and textbook. I remember when I did I wanted to study sound engineering, and I was so inspired by things like how creative the engineers who worked with the Beatles, in their kind of, particularly in their psychedelic period, were. And I was so full of that inspiration. I did this sound engineering course, and they wanted everything so by the book. Oh no, you can't pan it. That's wrong and stuff. And it's just I was so disappointed by that experience that it really put me off wanting to be a sound engineer. So I love it when art goes off-road, if you call it that, and people who think of a new way, a new, incorrect, in quotes, way of doing things. I just love hearing that. That's raw creativity for me.
I'm fascinated by your creative process because, I mean, I'm also interested in the relationship that you've developed with your machines. And I know that there are a couple you use that they have no MIDI, or there's one specifically, the Lyra. There's no quantization. You have to tune it by ear. Like, it's very difficult to work with. And
not really.
Oh, okay.
No, but it depends. I think, well, it's great because it depends what attitude you bring to it, how difficult it is, I would say.
Okay.
It all gets very zen, and I love that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, you've said that you like the process of surrendering yourself to your instruments and putting yourself in a position of discomfort. Why is that?
Well, look, I think those are two different things. So the lyre is a really good example because, like you said, there's no tuning quantization, there's no MIDI syncing or stuff like that. So it's like, okay, what is this machine? What does it want to do? How can I open myself up and try to not get in its way? It's just to very gently guide it and not approach it with a fixed mindset of, okay, I want it to do something it's not made to do. And it can be very, just riding the line of order and chaos and things like that is very meditative with that. But when you're talking about being uncomfortable, I think that comes down to when performing live, but also creating music in the studio, I change the setup and the method and the equipment quite frequently because I'll develop an idea and then it'll sort of peak at a certain point and I'll do something creative with it. But then after the peak of that comes a feeling of being comfortable. And that's the point where I want to change it because there's a certain tension of not quite knowing what's going to happen or chaos that I feel that creates the most interesting work in the studio and especially with live performances. So that's why I change things so frequently, because if I don't feel uncomfortable on stage, then it's not right.
Wow.
You know?
Yeah.
Because I feel that I think that the audience can pick up on that that jeopardy, or if an audience feels like the performer's just running through the motions, I don't think that's very good.
Yeah.
There's no kind of tension and excitement there. And I think that a bit of danger creates more excitement for me as a performer and for the audience.
What are some specific ways you might try to make the audience feel uncomfortable without like alienating them too much?
So one thing with live performance, it's like there are certain points where especially with improvising, an element of improvisation in there, there are points where things start to fall apart. And rather than trying to desperately hold them together, I find it better to just let them fall apart and let the energy fall down, and then I can pick it up again. So I'm not trying to like keep this maximum peak time kind of thing going the whole time. And I suppose it's the same with DJing as well. I like to allow the energy to fall apart and then pick it up again.
I wanted to quote something you said, which is that if I had to boil down my take on all of this, which I guess, creativity, music, it's about wanting to have people's boundaries expanded somehow. They would come in with a certain idea about things and leave with that widened. That's the aim of music and performance, to give them an experience outside their normal routine or life. And I just wanted to ask, many people might argue that they pay money to go see music and experience communion on the dance floor as to feel comfortable and like to escape from their life, and like they don't want to go have an uncomfortable experience. Sure. So what would you say to them?
There are a lot of other DJs and artists out there. I genuinely believe that what I do, that's my role as an artist personally. Not necessarily every artist, but this is what my mission is and what my role is to share with people and show people. And that's not the role of every single artist, but that's my mission, my mission. You know, I suppose it goes back to the way that I had my mind blown and was so inspired when something showed me, oh, look, this is much bigger than you thought it was. This is not as fixed as you thought it was. I always was so inspired by those moments. So I hope to give those to other people as well. And then they can just do what they want with that. They can go, oh, I didn't like it, or they can be inspired by it.
Yeah. Do you think that art can be good if it doesn't involve risk?
Yeah, that's a difficult question. I mean, yeah, I guess there's a place for, you know, a comfortable couch or something. But I don't know. It's just, I'm just a weirdo like that. I guess that's my easiest answer to that. It's like with this searching for music, I just never stop. And it's, you know, all these crazy worlds of like 70s cosmic free jazz or minimalist composers I've never heard of. It's just constantly opening up and changing my idea of what's possible and what people have done. I don't know. That's just how I am.
Yeah. Do you think that artists, you know, we talked about YouTube tutorials, and there are so many resources available now for artists.
It's great for DIY. I use them for, it's like if the sink plunger's broken or something, I look, okay.
So we don't have to bash YouTube, but
no, that's how I use YouTube tutorials. It's like home DIY fixes.
Okay.
It's amazing. Works every time.
I guess my point is rather that do you think that artists look for too many easy solutions in their work today, or is modern technology making people too comfortable in the creative process?
I don't know, because that's asking me about what another artist does, and I don't really know. But I think there are a lot more opportunities now to be lazy, probably, than a long time ago. But that definitely doesn't stop people being really creative with what they can do. I think for sure it's this very kind of old man shouting at cloud thing, where people go, oh, you know, the golden age of electronic music is over and it's all been done, blah, blah, blah. I just do not believe that at all. There's, you know, even if you personally haven't heard it, there's someone somewhere doing something amazing with some cracked software on a laptop or something like that. I really believe that. It's just that maybe I haven't heard that. And there are always people who are going to find an amazingly creative way of using the tools that are available to them. I'm always really optimistic about that.
That's good. Yeah, I do think that like the tenor of the time right now is it's skewing negative. Everyone's like, oh, dance music's over. But I think that you're absolutely right. Yeah. I feel like this is a nice segue into the label you run called Old Technology.
Oh, yeah.
What does old technology mean to you? Like, why did you choose this as the name of the label?
A lot of it's about LSD, actually, Old Technology. And it's like, it's a lot of things, but it's exploring the ideas and boundaries of what psychedelic music can be. I run that with Dan Bean, who I also perform with as the Transcendence Orchestra. And quite some time ago, he was really keen for us to start a label to release, I think one of the earliest releases we did was by B. Brennan. And he was really keen for us to start a label to release her music. I may be wrong, but that's how I remember it. But and I'd had experience of running labels, and I like creating music and performing, but the kind of day-to-day of running a label is not my favorite thing. So I was quite reluctant, but he persuaded me to do that. And I'm just really blown away by how it's taken off, where we released some of B's music. There's a band from Birmingham called Zygorat, and we released an album and a live recording by them. And I actually went to see a live show from by Sonic Boom. He was in a band called Spacemen 3.
One of my favorite bands.
Yeah,
cool.
So he did a live show, and Pete from Zygorat, he supported him, and I actually preferred Pete's show than the Sonic Boom one, but and so I got in touch with him through that. And what they do is like it's like electronic but jazz. I think they studied at the Birmingham Conservatoire jazz. Amazing drummer and stuff like that. But there's not really any kind of genre boundaries on the label. There's some kind of more drone stuff. But it really picked up when we released an album by Material Object. And ever since then, we've had lots of people sending us music that's just absolutely amazing. And it's just been so inspiring releasing all that music.
I have to ask, since you brought up LSD, is this based on your personal experiences using LSD? I
mean, I did when I think I had a really powerful experience with it when I was 18, and that's definitely something that really stayed with me and really informed a lot of things since then. Yeah, again, it's another thing that can really change the way that you look at the world.
I want to talk about the Transcendence Orchestra.
Mm-hmm.
You do these, it's been described as ambient. It's kind of more like electroacoustic, it seems.
The term ambient is a bit of a bugbear for me.
Yes.
Because the way I use the term is like, my understanding is this Brian Eno definition of music that you can either just as easily pay attention to or ignore. So it's this very, it's maybe what we were talking about, something being comfortable. Whereas, for me, what we do with Transcendence Orchestra is much more something I would pay attention to, and kind of is more demanding of attention and a little more prickly and not as comfortable. It's like we mentioned Coil. Some of what Coil does, people might say is ambient, but that's not really. That feels like the wrong way of describing it, really.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. What you're doing with the Transcendence Orchestra is, for anyone who's not familiar, is like these theatrical, in a way, live performances. Yeah. You use a lot of ritualistic ideas, from the way that you dress to the way that you prepare the space. Can you talk about what a performance would look like and what your intention is with it? Yeah,
it's something that's very psychedelic. It's the aim is to create a strong response in people, really. And, I think something that's come from that, which I really like, is that a lot of the time people who aren't so familiar with what we do or that type of music, you could say, is that they have this idea of ambient bit as being this like chill out, relaxing thing. But what we create live and at volume is really, really intense and as physical and intense as techno, for example. It just doesn't have beats.
Like a Sono show or something in a similar
exactly.
vein.
Yeah. It is definitely in that kind of area of things. It's not noise or harsh noise or whatever, but it's definitely like sonic pressure. There is that involved in it. And it's really satisfying to have people react afterwards saying, I didn't know music could do that to you. You know, it's that kind of thing. It's like it's exploring the psychoacoustic effects of music and just different ways that music can touch you and affect you.
It seems like there's some layers going on with the project where it's a little bit of a nod to the absurd in a way. Like there's something kind of where you're like, it's a bit of a joke, but also serious. And it does make, I mean, talking about Coil, it made me think of, for example, like, you know, the song Going Up.
Oh, yeah.
Where everyone's like, oh, I want this played at my funeral. You know, it's like this kind of very, for anyone who hasn't heard it, I guess, like really intensely emotional melody, but then the lyrics are about like going up the escalators in a mall.
So yeah, I'm really glad that you picked up on the absurdity of the Transcendence Orchestra, because something I love about it is these multi-layers where on a certain level we're creating this really intensely psychedelic, pressure, ritualistic, shamanic experience. But on the other level, it's like two guys wearing weird robes, like just playing the most ridiculous sounds you ever heard, you know. And I love that these two things they're existing at the same time. And yeah, it's definitely that's an important part of Coil for me. The cheeky, I mean, the way they were personally, they had a very cheeky. I don't know if you know the term seaside postcard.
Is that like a British thing?
It's a British type of cheeky, bawdy kind of humor, and they were very much like that personally. And yeah, I love the combination of something being totally serious but absolutely ridiculous, but realizing that it is at the same time. So I'm really glad that you picked up on that.
Did you know them personally?
A little.
Cool. That's cool. I am interested in, you have an interest in, maybe interest is too strong of a word, but like Indian raga and like sacred music more generally. Why is that?
I was fascinated by the idea. I think it was actually something I heard Peter Christopherson say in an interview where he said something about how the idea of music as being entertainment is a much more modern idea in human history, and that music as a way to connect with the divine and the universe has existed for a much longer time. And I was like, wow, that kind of makes sense. That's amazing. And yeah, it's just really interesting. You know, it's like what I said with the label Old Technology, where we're exploring different expressions of psychedelic music. I'm fascinated with different expressions of sacred music or holy music, or however you want to describe it. I'm really fascinated by how different people do that and express that. It's really, yeah, it's interesting to me, and I feel like I can be inspired by that as well.
Is there any specific kind of sacred or religious music that's really resonated with you that you can remember?
More recently, I've been dipping into some more kind of what you could call free kind of spiritual jazz music, like from the early 70s. It's, you know, I found some really interesting and really bizarre records have been made in that area that I hadn't come across before. So yeah, I'm just always hunting for interesting, odd music, really.
Yeah. Were you raised in a religious household?
No, really not. I mean, it was like polite Christianity, I would say, but nothing really heavy. There wasn't. Okay. It was like this, you know, you would go to church, but there wasn't really a whole lot of God-fearing going on.
Okay. I have heard about your interest in meditation and yoga, and this seems like kind of a dumb question, considering, I mean, the answer is quite obvious. to me, having talked to you for the last, 45 minutes, but do these mindfulness practices outside of music, do they feel like extensions of what what we've been talking about in regards to your musical practice?
Yeah, I mean, so often I've found at the beginning of something, say getting interested in yoga, say more drone performances and techno live performances, and how initially I feel like these are separate things, but over time I realize the way that they join and connect, and it just all merges into the same thing, really. So yeah, I really find yoga practice I find really helps me with like being able to attention for longer, basically. I mean, I dabble with meditation, but I find it a lot harder to stick to a regular practice than I do with the yoga. But yeah, I think that I really credit that as being a big part of helping me like quit drinking alcohol. I think that was about 13 years ago or something. That's a big thing in touring and playing shows. It's just something that's there all the time, and that's something that really got on top for me. And my relationship with it got really bad, so I think getting into the yoga really helped me to break out of that.
Is yoga a daily practice?
Yeah, I didn't do it today.
Okay.
But when I'm at home,
okay.
I do, yeah.
Okay. Before we started this interview, we were talking about some artists who you really like, and you mentioned Soft Cell, Bowie, and artists who kind of play with a gender fuck thing. Can you talk about that?
It was just one of these things where, and I've talked to quite a lot of people, how retrospectively, there's this, what is it? Is it called a sea change moment where describing when at a young age watching Top of the Pops? I mean, do you know?
I'm aware of it, but in the US,
it's like I mean, that was like the dinner time TV music show that like the whole country watched in the UK, and it was like the top 10 pop charts kind of thing. And that's where you got to see music, and just seeing, this moment where Soft Cell was performing Tainted Love on there. I mean, half the country reacted by wanting to kill him, and the other half of the country were like, oh my God, there's someone who's different, who's outside, who's breaking the rules, who's outside of it, and his gender rule breaking was so upsetting for a lot of people, but for other people it was inspiring, and it's just that thing about someone demonstrating that there's a different way of doing things that I find so inspiring. And the same thing with how inspiring David Bowie was to so many people. There's like a live performance of him doing one of the songs from Ziggy Stardust, I think, and I think he just puts his arm around Mick Ronson, and that was like, oh my God, at the time. But I understand inspired so many people, showing them that they weren't alone, as an outsider. So yeah, those moments are so kind of comforting for people and inspiring.
I can see how that's very much informed what your ethos with your music.
Yeah, I mean, when I was a kid, I liked a lot of queer artists, but it wasn't because they were queer. It was just that was where this outsider art was coming from so much, and particularly a band like Coil, who I look back and I'm, it's amazing how blatantly queer they were very, very out about that, at a time when, even someone like Soft Cell was like, they were kind of trying to be a bit ambiguous or something, weren't out and out saying that that Mark was queer. So yeah, I think they were incredibly brave at that time.
I want to return briefly to, the reggae dances that we talked about, because when I read the interview where you mentioned them, you said that you had no mental script of how you were supposed to act in this context, which you loved because you said your brain just can't understand it. So it then allows you into the unconscious, which is like a very philosophical reaction.
Did I say that? That's good. I got to remember that.
But the reason why I bring this up is, we live in this environment right now where TikTok videos are telling people how to dance to techno and act in a club environment. So, what is your take on that?
Yeah, that's a weird thing. Oh, actually, yeah, that reminds me of something that I find so fun and so refreshing about when we do Transcendence Orchestra performances, because I'm fascinated with this idea of the invisible script, and I think that's exactly what you're talking about. So when people go to a techno party, they have a very specific invisible script that they go with. They have it's the expectations that they go, and when those expectations are not met, they're often disappointed. But with for example, with a Transcendence Orchestra concert, people may not really know what it is, so they may not bring such a strong invisible script to the show. So there's a large amount of freedom that gives us, because their mind isn't so set. They might have this, it's a bit ambient, isn't it, kind of idea, but there's so much we can play with. Yeah, I'm fascinated with those ideas of performer, audience, psychology, and it's like what's the situation you've got and how can you play with it. Ultimately, it's not to like screw people's minds. It's ultimately it's always to give people some sort of out of body experience or something like that.
Yeah, there's a trend like psychedelic proggy techno is in.
Like I've said a few times, I'm always interested in what people's idea of psychedelic music is, but I don't always like it. I'm not crazy about psytrance, but that for some people that's the most psychedelic thing there is. But I just would rather not. I'd rather not. But it's fine. I don't want to like stamp it out or ban it or something. It's like, you enjoy that.
At the beginning, we were talking about Shellwave, which you have mentioned is your response to feeling a little disconnected from some things happening with music today. What are you feeling really connected with?
So, I guess it wasn't really about the disconnection. It's like, okay, so what's the essence of what techno is and what I feel connected to? And that's answered by the album.
Okay.
Sorry.
No.
Yeah.
What are you working on right now? What's next on your horizon?
I'm getting ready to go and play a load of shows in the US. I think that's what I'm going to be DJing in New York, Detroit, San Francisco, Arizona, and Los Angeles. I'm kind of deciding what I'm going to play for that, because I went out there last year and the year before, and the first year I kind of had an overall idea of what I wanted to present there, and I haven't decided for this year, but the first year I went over, I had this idea. I really wanted to present what I felt was a very English presentation of techno. So for me, it really brought in a lot of this kind of Bristol sound system culture and the connection with breakbeats and that rave scene and all of these kind of things and how that related and connected with techno. So that's kind of, I'm working on, okay, what's my message this year? So I'm working on that.
That's cool. You're back to DJing, is that right? Because there was a while where I think you were just playing live.
Yeah, I think there was this is a little while ago now, but there was 3 years where I decided to just focus on live sets. And that was really good to really focus me on that. But I really enjoy DJing as well. And currently I'm doing live techno and DJing, and then shows with Dan as the Transcendence Orchestra.
Cool. I hope to go to one of those someday. It sounds pretty incredible. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, you've had such an incredibly rich career. Is there anything you haven't tried yet or explored that you're still really hoping to do?
There are many things that I haven't tried yet or explored, but I just don't know what they are yet. That's really, and it's funny when you were saying that about having this long career in music. It's funny. The way my head is, I'm thinking about now and forward. I'm not thinking about, oh, I've done this stuff. It's like, it's almost packed away. If I've done something, it's like, okay, I've done that. My head's always about moving forward. What's new? What can I? What's a new way of doing things? What music can I find that I haven't heard? It's like an infinite pool that I'm going into, and that really keeps me going and keeps me excited and inspired. That's just never run out for me, that excitement and that being excited about finding something that I hadn't heard before. Do you have a favorite Coil album? Can I ask you some questions? Do you
I might reveal my ignorance here.
Do you have a favorite Coil album? It's a trick question.
Because they're all like.
I'm not going to say. I want your answer.
I would say Music to Play in the Dark is probably my most listened to.
1 or 2?
Oh, God. What's the one with the broccoli song on it?
1. Yeah, I like 1 as well.
Okay, good. Sorry, I answered
That's
it correctly.
That's a good one, correct. Good answer.
What is your favorite Coil album?
It's a trick question. There isn't one.
Okay, that's what
No, varies. Love Secret Domain. That was quite a special one for me. Kind of deeper dive favorite would be Worship the Glitch.
This is what I wanted to ask you about because I was reading this roundup of you chose some albums that you like. And because that one is so minimal, I actually find it sometimes it's not my favorite.
Okay.
But you really like
it's
that one.
It's an acquired taste.
What is it about that one that you really like?
It's really hard to explain why I love that so much. For me personally, it says so much, and I can't define easily what it's saying, but it says so much with so little. There's so little there at times, but I just find it so powerful. The space and how obscure it is, and I don't know. I know that quite a lot of people don't like it.
Well, you made an observation in this interview I read that it's...
Did I say more about it?
Yes, you did.
Because Tell me. I can't remember.
You said you listened to it so many times, and then at some point it clicked with you that they're referencing Sonny
and Cher.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So there's...
there are all these little queer and pop references in that super austere album that probably nobody would understand.
So I think the track may be called Mono, but I might be wrong. But yeah, I had forensically listened to this album for 20 years or something, and then one day I realized that this track was like a ring modulated loop of the guitar from Bang Bang by Sonny and Cher.
That is such
And I was like,
specific.
Oh my God. It was so weird because it's just like looking at the same picture for 20 years and then all of a sudden you go, huh? That's a face, isn't it? It's crazy. And I spoke to Drew McDowell about it and he was kind of laughing that I'd only just realized this.
Have you ever tried to do something like that in your music?
Yeah, there are a lot, especially a lot of British Murder Boy stuff. There's a lot of very camp humor in there, and all kinds of little, it's kind of like in jokes hidden in there, really. Mm. And I think that's probably something really inspired by how Coil were as well. I love how cheeky and the cheeky camp humor that's through all their music that some very serious, sort of goth fans may kind of miss out on how funny their music is as well as, all the other things.
I think that's good. Tony, it's been so great speaking with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.